So in this meeting, what we're going to be doing, we're going to talk about, well, let me start off by saying apparently. So whatever I say, whatever's said, just it's apparent, meaning it's neither real nor unreal. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about sort of two different things. One thing, and this is all apparent, right? Because there aren't two things, but apparently we'll be talking about two different things. One is just simply a pointing to what can't be known. And that's what's happening. This is what's happening. This can't be known. It is and it isn't. It's indescribable. It's a paradox. It's not actually a paradox. It's a paradox when you try to describe it. So to say it is and it isn't, it's just pointing to the fact that it can't be known. Saying it's the absolute appearing is just trying to describe what can't be described. It's not the absolute appearing. There is no word that can say what this is, what's happening. Because there's no distance, space, or time in what's happening. It appears that there is, but that's not real. So we'll be pointing at what can't be known. And the second is the reason this meeting happens, if you want to say it's happening, it's not really happening, it's only apparent, is because there's an experience that arises in this what's happening that says, I know what's happening. And that experience, I know what's happening, seems to be separate or distant from what's happening. It's not. It's an illusion. It's a trick. But that's the experience. And it's because that experience arises that this meeting apparently happens. Because that experience arises, says I'm separate from everything. I'm separate from what's happening. I'm real. I'm born. I have a life and I'm going to die. And that's problematic. So I need to find a way out. I need to find a way to feel fulfilled, to feel whole. I need, through my experience that I have of being real, to use my free will and choice to make my life better. To find whatever it seems to be that's missing, which is always something else. The next moment, the next instance, the next experience. So the situation is you have an experience that arises in what is. That experience is separate. It's not. The experience is that it's separate. And it tries through it, the separation is experience, and it tries through experience to overcome that experience. To find what can't be found because it is already everything.
So experience is illusion.
Absolutely. It assumes to what's happening.
That's higher English.
It assumes a what's happening here and a what's happening there. And there isn't a what's happening here and a what's happening there.
And the illusion is experience.
The illusion is experience. Just to be clear, experience is a sort of knowing.
Yeah.
It's a subject-object relationship. That's what experience is.
It is knowing in not knowing.
Is knowing in
Knowing
not...
inside not knowing.
No, well, there is no such thing as an object.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we're saying.
Yeah.
So knowing is unknowing.
Yeah.
Or the absolute. Appearing as knowing or being known.
There's no knowledge in the absolute.
Everything that arises is the absolute.
Yeah.
Whatever you can name or say is the absolute. It's not actually separate. What's being pointed to is the knowledge or experience I am is illusory. It's the illusory experience that there's separation.
But you cannot say everything is one.
Not really, no. You can't say what this is. But I mean, you can call it anything. I mean, you can't get it wrong in that sense. You could call it oneness.
Yeah.
It's not oneness. It's not non-duality.
No.
It's not a thing.
Okay.
And we are always merged in that.
No,
No.
no. There's no we. There's nothing to merge.
There's not a kind of a union between the river and the ocean.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, in the story there is. The river flows into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's a story.
But when I'm dead, I'm there.
You're already dead. There is no you.
Yeah.
You're already there, which means there's no there. There's only what's happening.
So I'm already dead.
Well, there's no you.
If you say experience again, how does that relate to the senses? Because everything, let's say, the body perceives seems to go through senses. So, do you mean that by experiencing?
Well, no, not really. I'm talking about when somebody experiences the senses. So the senses is actually just a function.
So it's the experiencing of the senses
Yeah.
that you would refer to as being.
So when I'm seeing, when I look,
Yeah,
I see an object.
yeah.
When no one's looking, there's only the infinite.
There's only one.
The infinite.
Yeah.
And the infinite is not seeing. The infinite is seeing.
Well, you could say the infinite is seeing. Yeah. The infinite seeing the infinite.
As a kind of a witness.
No, absolutely not. There's only the singularity of what's happening. So there's no witness, there's no knower, there's no actor, there's no one outside of it. And that what's happening is this. So it's what is and isn't happening. It's complete, it's everything, it's whole. No matter what appears to be happening, that's what's happening. It leaves no space for there to be a witness, or a knower, or there to be perception, or a perceiver.
But if you say what's happening, it sort of triggers a thought that if we go downstairs to another room, there's something else happening. That's probably
Yeah.
not what you mean.
Well, the funny thing is that you've well described the experience of the individual, that there's another happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that thought is what's happening.
Yeah.
And if you went downstairs, that would also be what's happening.
Yeah.
The individual separates it as though there's another reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the word happening is it relates to perceiving.
Yeah, but it did say and isn't. What is and isn't happening.
Yeah.
And Jim, nothing happens.
Not really.
Nothing happens.
Only apparently.
So now I'm a kind of idiot.
Well, there's no you. Just idiocy. Sorry. That was a favor. If that's what's happening. Yeah. Yeah. You is the experience of separation. You is the experience that there's another reality, that there's an experiencer, that there's what's happening and something else that's happening. That's me. That's the experience of duality, and that's an illusion.
And it's all by memory. Because of that is memory.
There is no separation, so it's not really happening. So anything that you could name, there's nothing that you could name or talk about or show that would prove or give sort of evidence for separation. There isn't any. There is no separation. Memory is simply just memory. So even the experience of the individual isn't real separation. That's why its suggestion is it's an illusion. There is no separation.
Jim, is the word paradox, is it because there's a feeling of separation when actually there isn't?
The paradox just points to the fact that what we're pointing to, the suggestion is about something that can't be said in words. And it can't be said because there's no separation.
Yeah.
So it's paradoxical, but only because of the need or the effort to explain it or to understand it. It's not really paradoxical.
Yeah. Yeah.
What just happened?
Nothing. But apparently I moved to be in the line of sight of other people in the room.
But where does this all end?
It never started.
It has to end. Never started.
No. The solidity of the individual gives the impression that this whole thing is coming from somewhere,
Yeah.
that time and space are real, that this is a part of a continuum that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's a dream. As we just described, downstairs is what's happening.
This is a
Thinking
dream.
about downstairs is what's happening. Going downstairs is what's happening. There isn't anything outside of what's happening.
And this is a very real dream.
No, well, for the individual it's real. For the individual it's part of a continuum that it's living in.
You say the individual is real?
No,
Oh.
for the individual.
Oh, for the individual. Yes, that's-
The illusory individual.
I'm sure that's for
Suddenly he changed everything. What happened? There's hope.
So,
And what words? What are words?
Words. Everything is simply what it is. The difference is if there's an individual, words are real. If there's no individual, they're just an appearance. Just like that. For the individual, it's a real hand. When there's no one left, it's the infinite handing. Not as an experience. There's no experiencer left.
How can I leave here as nothing?
Yeah.
Huh?
You didn't come as something. That's the point. There's no you. Wanting to leave as nothing is the experience of the individual saying, I'm real. How do I become unreal?
Yeah.
There is no real individual. How could it become unreal? Nothing is hidden. There's nothing defined. There's nothing lost. It's only that experience of the individual that has the illusory experience that there's something lost. There's nothing lost.
It's only by the naming of things.
No, absolutely not. There's the individual is an experience of being inside the body. I'm inside the body. And there's buttons and levers, which I call my free will, to be able to deal with what's outside the body. When I arise, that experience of position arises in the body, solidity, realness. It arises actually simultaneously in everything else. And then the appearance and my life are real. And that experience is illusory. There isn't anything in here. There isn't anything that ends at the skin. And there isn't anything outside. There is no inside, there's no outside. There's only what's happening.
What's happening is not happening.
Not really. But apparently, it appears to be.
Can I be here as if I'm nothing?
You aren't here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's no way to be nothing.
Yeah.
So what about if there is only the absolute, right? There's only the absolute.
Appearing relative.
Appearing relative, but why the duality? Why the need for a dual experience?
There isn't any.
So our existence, the illusion we live in.
There isn't any. You don't have an existence. And you don't live in an illusion. You, the experience of being real, is an illusion.
I agree with that.
Oh.
But why would the absolute then need to
It doesn't.
express itself in that way?
It doesn't. It doesn't even express itself. It's not like the absolute is separate from the appearance and sort of making it happen. This is the absolute.
It's not separate. Of course, it's not separate. It's everything is one. The absolute is one, and it is everything. But
It's not the absolute is everything. The absolute and everything are the same thing.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. But then why would the absolute?
But if the absolute and everything are the same thing, where could the question of why arise?
Is the question?
Where would it occur?
In the duality, in the illusion of having.
But that's also the absolute.
Of course it is.
So where's the question?
Well, the question would be, personally for me, it would be,
Yeah, but where does it arise? The question would have to arise in the experience that there's the absolute and the relative as separate things.
Exactly.
They aren't. You've already agreed that it's the same thing.
There's our
So
experience.
where does the question arise?
At a top level, everything there is.
There is no top
There's no
level.
there's no separate. From our perspective, right? From our perspective.
It's not a perspective.
So
No separateness. Where would a perspective come from?
right.
Yeah. There's just everything.
Yeah, but still we are experiencing.
We aren't.
Not from an absolute perspective. You're right, but we are.
But we've already agreed there's only the absolute, so there's no perspective.
right.
And there's no space, there's no place for a question, because there's no one to ask.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like just an absolute answer. Just
There's just what's happening.
this is, and then that's.
And it's not real.
All right. So why that philosophy?
Why what?
Why that philosophy?
Why not absolutely.
Why that idea? Why that philosophy?
Yeah, why not philosophy? Yeah.
Being no purpose, being no nothing.
Yeah.
No clue.
All right.
Hey Jim, does the absolute know that I am?
There isn't a you.
It only knows nothing. Nothing knows only nothing.
No, nothing knows nothing. There's nothing known. There's only what's happening. And that can appear as knowing where my hotel is.
So that can also appear as knowing what experiencing Australia.
Absolutely. It is already everything. It can appear as an experience of being separate even.
But it's so magnificently brilliant that when you take the plane to Australia, then Australia is there. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Hmm.
In Australia, it is yesterday.
Which is what's happening.
There are apparently two worlds, and one is the illusory world in which we live. Where do we get the right impulse to live your life?
You don't have a life.
Maybe I have to take the tram back to the station.
You don't.
Oh,
We're going to dinner afterwards. No, I'm just kidding. There's no. You've never made a decision. Me doesn't make decisions. Me doesn't actually do much of anything except sort of interfere. It doesn't have thoughts. It doesn't have feelings. It takes ownership of what arises. It says that's mine.
mhm.
It arrogates everything to itself in its illusory experience.
Nevertheless, I have to go back to the station.
You didn't come here. They're just what's happening.
The fact that I came here was happening.
That memory is what's happening, and you didn't do it.
Who did?
No one. It's not, no, there's nobody in there. Nobody makes decisions. The entire experience of being an individual with free will and choice is an illusion.
But there is no illusion.
There is no illusion, except for the individual.
Right. So the illusion of the individual, right? Why the illusion of the individual?
We've already gone through that. Because the illusion of the individual is the absolute appearing as an illusion of the individual, there's no why. It's just what's happening.
Mm.
Why only arises if there's real separation and somebody trying to find a way out. But as we've already agreed, it's all just the absolute. There's nowhere to go. Nothing moves, really. There wouldn't be anywhere for a why to arise or anywhere for a why to direct anything to. Because there's only what's happening,
So,
apparently.
okay. And you also having this illusionary experience.
What's that?
You were also having this
There's no one
experience.
here. There's no one there either, just to be clear.
Okay. But how does this philosophy, how does that work? for
We're
you?
just in the philosophy room. There's not really a philosophy being talked about. This isn't a philosophical exercise.
Okay. But I'm just curious as a
Philosopher.
philosopher to another philosopher. How does this philosophy affect your experience?
Yeah,
Illusion?
right. It doesn't. There's no one. There's no experience. There's just what's happening. It's not a philosophy, which is going to make it very difficult to talk about it as a philosophy. These aren't theories.
It's just an idea.
No, it's just what's being expressed. It's just obvious. So this isn't saying that there's no individual as a theory. This is saying there's no individual because there's no individual. This isn't saying that the appearance is the absolute, appearing as a room, as a philosophy, or as a theory. It's just obvious that that's all there is. It's just obvious that it's the infinite appearing. So there's no room to philosophize about it. It's just immediate.
So it's a kind of film without a projector, without a screen,
Absolutely.
and it is empty like that.
Absolutely.
That's
And nobody watching.
yeah, also that.
Yeah.
It's just so staggering to even trying to imagine that everything is empty. It's,
Yeah.
now and then I come out a little bit closer than on other days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing
Yeah, it is.
and scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Jim, I'm a Roman Catholic. What is that?
A belief. When the eye arises, it doesn't actually make sense of everything. It just has the experience of everything being real. And so over time what it doesn't do this, but what happens through experience, this is a story. It builds up a belief system around that solidity of I am. And the Roman Catholicism is a belief system around the solidity I am that makes sense of what this is about for it. Because it needs to make sense because it's on its way somewhere.
Is that
The end, the hope. It lives in hope. The individual lives in hope.
It helps to make the individual more stronger.
Well, it sort of supports the individual. It gives it it's a path. It feels like it's on a path. This is a dream. It's not really happening, but this is the experience of the individual. Is I'm on a path. I'm going somewhere.
I belong to a group.
I belong to just a path, and it loves groups. Yeah, feels like it belongs, and it likes God because it leaves home where mom and dad are, and it just gets another dad to make it feel good. Somebody knows what's going on. Will help.
I have support.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very insecure existence, the individual. It's a frightening, insecure, contracted existence. It's a dream, it's not real, but that's the experience.
So touching, feeling, smelling, it's not real.
It's real and unreal. It's just what's happening.
Yeah, it's just.
It's just what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's just what's happening. That means that there is only this particular moment. Yeah. Is that what I understand?
Well, not for the individual. It'll say what's happening, and it will use its perception to try to be now, and it will miss that there's only what's happening, and it has nothing to do with something it could or couldn't do. There's nothing excluded from what's happening. There's no way to get closer or further away from what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's already everything. That's why the suggestion that the experience of being an individual is illusory.
Yeah.
Already, it's not happening.
No.
So when it stops happening, it's revealed or obvious it never did. It never did. It's not happening.
And you know, people who have been in a concentration camp, can they say nothing ever happened? How do we do that?
Nobody can say nothing ever happened.
Okay, nobody can say that. Yeah.
Because for the individual, everything's happening. It's really happening.
Yeah.
It's in a process, the individual.
But they can't say nothing happened.
Nobody can
But
say
they have
nothing
that
happened.
experiences.
Yeah. Well, experience apparently happened.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah.
Serious experiences are more real, are they? So having a cup of coffee is not real. But when you go into concentration camp, woo! That's real.
With nothing to gain.
Excuse me?
There's nothing to gain.
There's nothing lost.
No. Also.
Yeah. The experience of the individual is something's missing.
Yeah.
So it wants to, through experience, keep adding and adding and adding to itself. And it never fulfills that gap of separation. It can't solve the problem of itself. It can't overcome it. The illusory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I find difficult? You said that there's no process, only an apparent process.
It's a dream. Any apparent process is just a dream.
And the experience of the me is pretty much embodied energetically in the body.
Yeah.
I heard you or someone else say.
Yeah.
Which is being confirmed throughout every day by the apparent me and all that's surrounded with. So it makes it kind of hard. I've heard the message so many times, so many years, and it's still it seems to understand.
Yeah.
Though not really grasp or embody, or I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
So that's something that's constantly appearing.
Yeah.
Not a question.
No. That's just what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the best way to die?
You're not already. You don't have to die.
No. But when I'm close, I say that to myself.
If you're saying that to yourself, you'll have the experience that you're dying,
Yeah.
which is a dream. Death only appears for the individual. Death only has a reality in the experience of separation.
And when I die,
There is no separation.
yeah.
There is no death.
So I'm dying, there is no death.
The body will die.
Yeah.
That doesn't belong to anyone, the body. It's just a body.
So I lay in the bed.
If you're laying in the bed, you're going to have the experience of dying.
Yeah.
Now, the question you have to ask yourself as an individual is death real? Because if you die and you know you're dead, are you dead? And if you die and you don't know you're dead, who's dead? So what's death?
Please. He's Undertaker. He's Undertaker.
He's an undertaker.
Sorry.
That sounds philosophical.
It is very philosophical. We are in the philosophical camera. Come on.
Jim, regarding energy in the body, I heard you say several times that the illusion starts with the perception of being here, of position.
Yeah.
I know it's probably something that you might say, well, it's not a question, but would you say that from your perspective, if there's something like that, that's different than from the perspective that's
Absolutely not. This doesn't actually see people. So it's quite obvious there's no individual in this room.
Yeah. But it used to be different, or not?
Yeah, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are all being stupid.
It's not really it's not stupid. It's not being an idiot. It's because that would mean that you had a choice. There isn't any judgment. Personal judgment comes out of the individuals experience of life, and its hope that there's a solution. So it comes out what this is about and how it works it out to find, with its belief system, of how it's going to find the solution to itself. So it becomes a Roman Catholic, or it becomes a Buddhist, or it meditates all day, or a breatharian, or whatever it does. And everybody that does what it does, it's the good people. And people that don't do what it does are bad people. And that's just the way personal judgment of how it finds its way out. But it's just a dream. There isn't personal responsibility. There isn't anybody who could make a decision.
So it doesn't matter what we do.
There is no you.
We. It doesn't matter what we do.
And there is no we.
Actually, when I close my eyes, I'm still. I hear a kind of buzzing, a kind of sound. I see some move inside. What is that?
That's the infinite appearing as sound. If there's someone there, it'll be trying to figure out what it's about because it's on a journey, and it'll want to give it meaning and purpose, hoping that it means something important. It doesn't. It's just sound. It's just sound. Of course it's nothing. Sounding. It's nothing asking. This is nothing speaking.
But it looks like a first suggestion, the first impression,
Yeah.
first subtlety.
Oh well, stick with it. Maybe it'll get better. Hope springs eternal. Yeah.
But what you're saying, David, there is no hope, basically. What is the...
Well, there's no need. Hope is really a horrible thing if you think about it.
Hope, though. You're mentioning it, but what
Well, hope is that
message on that, man?
the hope is that in the future something is going to happen to make me okay, to make this okay, to make my experience okay. That's hope, which is pretty awful if you think about it, because it's never this. It's always in the future. But thank God, of which there isn't one. There is no real future. There isn't any need for hope because there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, I agree with them. But the thing is, we still have the.
There's no we.
I know there's no we. It's just
Yeah, but if that's happening there, that's all right. So you have the experience of.
There's no we. There's no individual. It's just the experience. I, as an individual, we are as individuals are having. We still have that experience. Knowing this.
Which experience?
Of the individual.
Okay.
The duality, this life,
Mm-hmm.
we still have that. Even knowing the infinite and...
Nobody knows that.
No.
This isn't coming from knowing.
No, right, sure. But even if my individual had that awareness or had that knowing, right, it doesn't change the fact that I'm still having the experience as an individual. I can't...
Knowing isn't what this is about. Knowing is just something that seems to happen. Understanding the concepts of what's being shared here is simple. They're very straightforward concepts.
Yeah, I agree.
There's only about 4 of them.
Yeah, I get them too. But it
Yeah.
doesn't, and either all those concepts
No, it won't help.
don't change the fact that we're still having this experience.
No. Although that experience might just end, revealing there never was that experience. It's just what's happening.
Say that again?
That experience might just end, stop happening, in the same way that it started happening for no reason.
How would it stop happening?
Just by not happening anymore.
Why would it stop happening?
Well, it's already not real, so there's no reason for it to happen. It doesn't serve any purpose.
Right. The thing is that you've known that, having that concept, having that idea, being real.
But we're totally in agreement that the concepts are useless.
Yeah.
We're not actually talking about concepts. At the beginning, I said we were going to talk about 2 different things. One was, we're going to be pointing to something that can't be spoken about. And the other is, we're going to talk about the experience that makes what we can't speak about seem to be hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience, part of that experience is the concepts that you're talking about.
Right.
So I know this is the absolute. that has no relationship to the fact that this is the absolute.
Right? I'm just trying to make the
Connection.
make it useful.
Yeah, well, it's not. There's no. This is completely a useless message. It has absolutely no value at all.
All right. Well, I get that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think what as an individual, being an illusion of the individual, you try and make it make sense for the point of this experience.
Oh, absolutely. You will.
Of course, there is no, like you say, there is no point to it because there is.
The individual
There's
will
nothing.
necessarily try to apply this.
Mm.
It tries to take everything into itself and use it to help it find what it's looking for. So it will take what's being shared here as some sort of practice. I'm nobody. Look, there's nobody
But
here.
there's no practice. There is nothing. There's nothing. That's what I'm saying. It's completely useless.
Oh, completely useless. It doesn't stop the individual doing it, but trying to see it, trying to know it. Because it's convinced, because it has the experience of being real and having free will of choice, it is convinced that it will be a part of its own solution.
Mm-hmm.
That it will know.
Yeah.
And when I say I'm nobody and nothing, that is a trap. When I say I'm nobody...
That's just what's happening. There isn't a trap. There's no real separation. There's nothing to overcome. There's nowhere to go. There is only home.
There is only?
Home? Home?
What do you mean there is only home?
There's only everything.
Okay.
There's only what's happening.
And what is happening is pure coincidental then,
Well, only in a story.
because there is no line. to it.
Absolutely.
Concept.
Absolutely. So there's no coincidence. Right.
Yeah, that's what I call coincidence.
Coincidence is a story.
Yeah.
Coincidence is a couple of different happenings happening in sort of a synergetic or a sort of a coincidental sort of thing.
Yeah.
There aren't different happenings.
No.
Right. So there's no coincidence. There's no coincidence. This appearance,
So there is a coincidence.
this
then.
appearance is absolute chaos.
Yeah. Okay. No.
This is
There's
good.
no line in it. There's no.
There's no
structure.
line in it. Absolutely not.
Okay. That gives peace.
No direction?
No.
What the hell?
Another idea. Well, that is, in the end, the clue of this game.
Well, there is the individual wants to know. I know. I get it. Because but that comes out of the experience that something's missing. So the solution would have to be known or something added on to what's happening to make it complete and whole. That's an illusion. There's nothing needed to be added.
You said that there are 4 concepts. What are the 4 concepts?
Okay, good. I just threw that out. I don't know what it is for. Let's see. All there is the absolute appearing.
Mhm.
There is no individual. Nothing is real. Nothing is unreal. 3.
There's no meaning.
There's no meaning or purpose.
I used to be a fan of meaning,
Yeah.
but it was stolen.
You lost it. When the individual arises, meaning and purpose comes immediately with it. It's a part and parcel of that experience of being an individual, meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
I cannot help the of my dog. So what you are saying is, I guess, what my dog is experiencing.
But that's just what's happening.
Yeah.